Hello aspirants, welcome to PW OnlyIAS. I'm here preaching with a daily analysis of the Hindu from 23rd and 25th of November 2024. Let's begin with today's analysis. So this is basically the Telegram account where you can find the PDF along with the other material that is required for your preparation. So what all topics we have taken for today's analysis, let us have a look at them. See, from the perspective of the mains examination, we have COP Conference of Parties 29. The outcome has been there. So what were the targets? What type of financing has been committed by the developed countries? We're going to discuss over here. Page number 5. Then we have the cyber security rules that have been basically made public. That is important. Disqualification of MLAs, page 2. Then we have the urban infrastructure financing, page 6. From the perspective of the prelims examination, we have a Kandakarnan Thira. This is again a basic form of dance that we have in Kerala. Again, it is of various forms, but again, this is very specific with respect to the culture of Kerala. We'll study that and analyze that. With a profuse use of fire is made in this particular dance. So it is very important from your prelims as well as the mains examination. Next is Vikasit Bharat Dialogue, page number 5. We'll be discussing what it is basically and analyze that. Let's begin with today's analysis. The main topics. So this is climate deal, a mere illusion, says India. When we see this, we'll see topic number 1, DS3. In your mains and prelims examination, both, this topic is going to be very, very important with respect to COP 29. India has called it an illusion. Before we go ahead, we all know that COP 29 is very, very important because this will decide the future course of how the climate financing is going to run. We will be seeing what COP 29 basically is, as we have seen many times earlier. But why does India call it an illusion? Because we saw the first day when the meeting started taking place, there was an expectation that close to $5 trillion to $6.5 trillion would be committed by the developed countries to the developing and the lesser or the least developed countries annually to meet their movement towards the green technology. But we have finally come to a conclusion where $300 billion again is being committed. Now that is merely very less in comparison to what the target was. So that is why India has called it a mere illusion. Let us move and analyze what this topic basically is. Okay. First thing comes into our mind is what is COP 29? We have studied it many times in the editorial. COP is again Conference of Parties with a 29th meeting, right? COP 29 stands for 29th meeting of the Conference of the Parties, COP, under what? United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. When this convention was signed, after that, there was a realization that again we need to meet annually to discuss how we have to go ahead with the climate change problems that the world is facing. So they have an annual meeting, which is known as a Conference of Parties. Please remember, there are various conventions that have been signed. Under them, various conference of parties take place. When I talk about COP, we have to be very particular that it is under the UNFCCC. That means which is working with respect to the climate change. So under this, COP 29 is taking place. At what place? Azerbaijan, right? So these conferences serve as a principal forum for the countries to discuss and make decisions of how to combat the climate change. That means how to resolve the climate change is discussed annually. This year's Conference of Parties 29 is taking place at Baku, Azerbaijan. The theme is again very important because in the prelims, you can be asked about what the theme of COP 29 is. It is investing in a livable planet for all. Now, this is a theme. Now, please understand, focus on COP. Why COP is very important? 29th is important. Please understand, this year's focus is how the future is going to be with respect to financing. Please remember, you would have seen that the developed countries have a lot of money. They transition towards what? They transition towards greener technologies because they could afford it. But when you come across the least developed countries or developing countries, we have a, let us say, a very small manufacturing sector also, which cannot simply move towards those advanced technologies because that requires a lot of investment. So the countries want that if the developed countries want the developing countries also to move towards those greener technologies, you finance us. And for that, the financing is basically required. And for that, the discussion at COP 29 is going on. Now, dubbed as finance COP because financial aspects or commitments are being expected from the meeting that is taking place to establish a new collective quantified goal. We have already seen new collective quantified goal. What does it mean? Please understand this. This can be asked in your papers also. New collective quantified goals. NSQG refers to the money that will be given to developing countries by the developed countries to provide climate finance. That means NSQG is what? The money that will be given by the developed countries committed to them so that the developing countries and the least developed countries move towards the greener technologies or combat climate change. Now, NSQG is expected to be an update of the 100 billion per year that the developed countries had promised in 2009. In 2009 also, please remember, there was a commitment that was made by the developed countries, which is a Copenhagen meeting, right? In COP 2009 took place at Copenhagen, where the developed countries said that we will be giving $100 billion annually to the developing as well as the least developed countries. But the truth is that in reality did not take place. That is why this big meeting becomes important, that if you really want to combat the climate change, we need to have a quantified amount of money which will be genuinely given by the developed countries. So coming back to this, new collective quantified goals to mobilize financial resources to climate change for the developing nations. Now this was again so that can be mobilized for the climate change aspects. Second is find ways to accelerate the energy transition from fossil fuel to the renewable energy. That means how you can transition towards the renewable energy was a goal. Global adaptation strategies to combat the climate change, that what all strategies can be adopted by the countries as a whole so that you can move towards or combat the climate problems that are being faced by the countries. So that, and curb the global warming below 1.5 degrees Celsius to the industrial level. That means pre-industrial level, what the temperature was and the pollution was, both taking into consideration, we need to prevent the rise of temperature below 1.5 degrees Celsius, because if that happens, the intensity of the climate change and the vagaries taking place will intensify. But we all know that the pace at which the pollution is being there or the climate change is being observed across the world, this target might not be met in advance only. This has been reported by even by the World Bank, even by the IMF reports, and even by the World Health Organization for that matter. The culmination of the first global stockade initiated at COP26 is central to COP29. Operationalizing the loss and damage fund, again, what all loss and damage is taking place because of the climate change, that will be discussed. To address the needs of the most affected countries, because you know that if the pollution is being created by the developed countries, because of that the climate change is taking place and the water level is rising. Who are the people who are least or the most impacted? The island nations. So they are the ones who are losing the maximum. So they need to be more taken care of. That is why a special fund is being created, loss and damage fund, where special attention is paid to the most vulnerable countries. Now, Article 6 of the Paris Agreement which took place in 2015. Article 6 of the Paris Agreement created principles for carbon market and ways the countries could cooperate to reach climate targets. Carbon market, because you have seen that trading in carbon can take place. For example, carbon credit concept is there, where a country, let us say a particular company is producing an excess amount of pollution. Now another company that is producing lesser amount of pollution can gain carbon credits, because it is reducing the carbon emission, and the one that is producing more can buy it from the one that is reducing less. So in a way, we say trading with respect to carbon is basically taking place, and that is tradable in the market also. So in a long term, to reduce the carbon emission is the aim, right? While rules were agreed at COP26, still there was need to establish necessary operationalization of those particular things became important. So this is important from the perspective COP29. So all these things were there with respect to COP29. Now moving ahead, please understand what are the key outcomes. Please understand. First, global carbon market. An agreement has been reached on international carbon market standards under Article 6 of the Paris Agreement. That means how the trading is going to take place, the ways it is going to be, a global carbon market is going to be there. Like we have the stock exchanges, similarly we have the carbon markets also, where trading with respect to the carbon can take place, carbon emissions, and in a way of carbon credits, as we talk about, as we have studied earlier also. So we say it offers two pathways for the countries and the companies to trade carbon offsets, supporting the achievement of the emission reduction targets. So that means what is the most important thing? Agreement on the international carbon market has been achieved. If you want to remember for the mains examination, what you have to remember? Global carbon market, our international carbon market standards under Article 6 have been reached. So that is the number one thing, right? Next is we go ahead, please understand. When we see, second is implementing loss and damage support. We had already talked about the most vulnerable countries who are going to suffer the most. For them, this fund has been, again, they have agreed on that. COP29 has made progress, putting the loss and damage fund into action, providing financial help to the countries vulnerable to climate impact. So that means those countries the most vulnerable, special fund would be given to them. Now, if you compare India's situation with that of Maldives, let us assume. Maldives is more vulnerable because the moment the sea level rises, they are the ones who are going to suffer maximum. Other countries also who are, let us say, small island nations. So that is why special fund is required for them, which they said will operationalize them. Next, global energy storage and grid pledge. The pledge commits signatories to commit to a collective goal of deploying 1500 gigawatt of energy storage globally by 2030. Now this is important. Please understand, when we talk about the energy that is created, now, with respect to storage also a lot of problem comes. See, if we are aiming at producing energy through the means of renewable energy, we need to have storage mechanisms also there, because how will we utilize them? So producing energy is fine, but will it be utilized? For example, let us take an example of solar energy production. Under normal circumstances, when hydroelectric power plants are there, they're producing electricity and the electricity is going and coming to our houses. But if solar energy is producing energy, will it be available during the day or night time? No. So that means the energy that is produced during the daytime has to be stored somewhere. For that, storage mechanism is again very important. That is why they said, see, we are deploying again storage and grid pledges. That means storage of energy becomes equally important here. Because if you see with respect to solar energy, one of the very important aspects, you cannot produce solar energy during the night time. So what excess energy is produced during daytime has to be stored, which can be utilized during the night time. So storage, again, a pledge has been taken that mechanisms will be created for storage of the energy also. Next is fourth, COP hydrogen declaration launched. Now hydrogen is again a future where we see that pledge signatories commit to scale up renewable, zero emission and low carbon hydrogen production to accelerate decarbonization of the existing hydrogen production. Now this is again a way to combat, because hydrogen is again very energy efficient, but again the problem which hydrogen is facing is that it is flammable. Now what creates is that its storage has to be in such a way that it does not create any problem. Initially when we realized that, when we few decades back also people were transitioning or thinking about moving to hydrogen, lot of storage issues and blast in those cylinders did take place, because of how to handle hydrogen is very, very important. Yeah, so that is why what was decided is that we need to move towards hydrogen with a better technology, so that proper, let us say, storage within the tanks, within the cars takes place. Now this becomes very important because see, India is a tropical country. Unlike the temperate countries, the temperature does not rise very high. In India, it does. That is why, did you realize when companies like Ola and all, they moved towards their two-wheelers, the batteries that were created were for temperate countries, not for tropical countries. So what happened? They were catching fire. That means what you have to create should be indigenous to the country itself, because our conditions and the environmental conditions are very different. That is why a cylinder for storage of hydrogen in United States might not work in India. That is why we said what? COP hydrogen declaration. That means production, not only production of hydrogen, how to store it and how to practically use it becomes important, right? Next, launch of Hydro for Net Zero LAC initiative. This initiative aims to develop and modernize sustainable hydrogen power infrastructure, hydropower infrastructure. Now, please understand, increasing the efficiency of the hydropower also becomes very important. In the recent reports by the Ministry of Energy also, it is basically said that, see, large-scale production of hydroelectric plants again is very unsustainable for the environment also. So producing those small hydropower plants which are sustainable friendly also is the future. So that is why we say launch of Hydro for Net Zero. That means hydrogen electricity generation with net zero emission in a way. That is what is the aim over here. So please understand, people in the examination will get confused over here in a means that hydro for net zero would be like, in a way, let us assume that first statement would be that it is aimed at production of hydrogen power. No, hydropower and hydrogen power is different. So hydropower is through what? Water only, but in a sustainable manner. So many people will get it wrong. So please understand, it is not hydrogen, it is hydropower. That means through the hydropower plants that we are producing, but sustainably. So this is again fifth. If we go on, next is sixth, Baku Harmonia Climate Initiative. These small words that are there can be there in your mains examinations and prelims examinations also. What is it? It is a collaboration with Food and Agriculture Organization, aims to unite various efforts to address climate change in agriculture through adaptation and mitigation. So what they're aiming at, see, we realize that the large number of pollution is produced through agriculture also, right? Because we see methane gas emissions, we see burning of various piles of, let us say, rice that are remaining, right? Stock burning and all. That produces a lot of pollution. That also contributes towards global warming and climate change. So, Baku Harmonia Climate Change is in basically a collaboration with Food and Agriculture Organization to have a sustainable agriculture through which reduction of emissions through the agriculture sector can take place. Next is seventh, Global Energy Efficiency Alliance. Now this is again very important. Global Energy Efficiency Alliance, COP29. This alliance was launched by UAE at COP29 at Azerbaijan, following the momentum built by UAE consensus during COP28. So this is what first thing is. An initiative that is taken by UAE, United Arab Emirates. What does it aim? This initiative highlights the UAE's commitment to reducing carbon emissions and conserving natural resources by promoting global collaboration. So, first thing will be the word Global Energy Efficiency Alliance first came in COP28, not 29. One important thing. It was more promoted or in detailed analysis were done in COP29. So if it is asked that this was first time used in COP29, will be wrong. It was first time used in COP28. What does it mean? It basically aims that various countries basically come in collaboration to have a mechanisms and technologies through which better efficiency is achieved in various things that they do, so that overall reduction in the carbon emissions take place. Again, so this is very, very important. Next is eighth, publication of Climate Change Performance Index 2025. Climate Change Performance Index uses standardized framework to compare climate performances of 63 countries and European Union, which account for over 90% of the global greenhouse emissions. So what does it mean basically? Now see, they are basically going to have this index so that which is going to measure how the performance of the various countries have been with respect to the emissions that are taking place. Now, under 4 categories, which is greenhouse gas emissions, renewable energy, energy use, and climate policy. These are the 4 categories under which the various countries would be categorized. Now, this can be asked, what are the which among the following are the basic parameters or categories under which this rating would be there? First, greenhouse gas emission, renewable energy, energy use, and climate policy. This can be very well asked, so please make sure that you all remember it. So what does mean? What is a performance index? Let us say various countries are going to, after 2025, you will be realizing that every country, based on the funding that is there, they will be moving towards greener technology. So what steps that they have taken, what steps they have taken towards reduction of the greenhouse gas emissions will be basically studied over here, and based on that, an index would be charted that what is the performance of the various countries. Now that would be based on what parameters? Greenhouse gas emission, that means to what level they have reduced the greenhouse gas emission. Renewable energy, that means what percentage of the total energy is through greenhouse emission, renewable energy, and what better innovative steps they have taken. Energy utilization, what type of energy they are using, a mix or let us say completely fossil fuel. And climate policy, that means what is their approach towards climate change. Some countries will be having, let us say, that they don't want to participate in climate change, so that means their rank will deteriorate in the index because of that. Next is Baku Declaration on Climate Transparency. This again is important. Baku, again, you know, Azerbaijan. In Azerbaijan, the declaration calls for global commitment to fully operationalization of enhanced transparency framework. This is very important. Please understand climate transparency. I'll give you an example. Few years back, I think much before COVID, I think 10 years back, BMW was fined billions of dollars. Why? What they did was, with respect to their energy utilization or the average that the car used to give, they used to change it or cheat the users. Let us say if you put 10 liters of fuel in a BMW car, right? The energy, that means the average that the car was giving, was shown to be much enhanced than what actually the car was giving. So what does it mean? That means the car would be more energy efficient, assumed to be. But when it was found that it was cheating from the side of BMW, they were basically fined billions of dollars. Similarly, please understand. Similarly, when we talk about transparency, in true sense, are the countries actually moving or adopting green technologies or simply saying that they are adopting? That is why, remember, enhanced transparency framework means that whatever funding you are giving to the companies, whatever dimensions you are following, it should be such that it should be very transparent. There should be no cheating with respect to what green technologies you are moving towards. So that is why this becomes very important here. Next is 10th, strengthen nationally determined contributions. That means countries are encouraged to enhance their nationally determined contributions with a 2025 deadline to update the commitments. You would have seen that in the Paris Agreement 2015 also. The concept of nationally determined contributions did come here. That means that country themselves are going to tell what they are going to do with respect to reduction of the carbon emissions or the greenhouse gases. So that means for 2025, again, the countries have to give a list what they are basically aiming at in order to reduce the carbon emissions. So this is again an important dimension over here with respect to the point number 10. Clear? I guess these are the outcomes and the very important ones. Understanding this, why it is important, please. Now the question will come, why India says it is an illusion. See, India has very categorically said it is an illusion because over here you see climate initiatives taking place. You see we have the aspect of loss and damage support here. But the problem over here is because these are not something new. These have existed earlier also. But now what we see that the problem is whether they will be implemented or not. The major outcome again is, please understand, $300 billion annually is the commitment that has been agreed to. $300 billion annually is a commitment that has been made by what? The developed countries. To whom? To your developing plus the least developed countries. Clear? The least developed countries. So this is again a dimension that is mentioned here. Clear? Let's move ahead. Topic 2, GS2, government notifies telecom cybersecurity rules. Now let us see what are these. Key provision with respect to cybersecurity rules. We know that a cybersecurity is a major concern that takes place because a lot of monetary loss, lot of privacy aspects, lot of aspects associated with national security and defense is basically threatened in today's time with respect to cybersecurity. So what is cybersecurity? It is a practice of protecting systems, networks, and programs from digital attacks. That means preventing the intrusion attacks that take place towards your public infrastructure or the assets that are there, because everything is connected towards now digital or the cyberspace. The cyber attacks are usually aimed at accessing, changing, or destroying these sensitive information, extorting money, that is through ransomware, or interrupting normal business processes. So that means we had seen the cases where the hacking of the AIMS website took place. We saw that hacking of the airport's operating system did take place recently, which was actually labeled as outaging, though it was again cyber attacks that took place. So we see that everything is connected through the cyber technology or the cyberspace. If any issue arises, it is going to threaten the economy as well as the security of the country. Now, when we talk about this, we see that key provisions under the telecom cybersecurity rules. Key measures: specifies a timeline for the telecom companies to report security incidents and make disclosures. That means the onus is on the telecom industries to release any problem that arises. Empowers the central government and or the authorized agencies to seek traffic data, excluding message content from the telecom entities for cybersecurity purposes. That means the central government can ask the telecom operators to see the traffic data, what type of data is basically flowing without actually seeing the messages. Supposingly, there is transfer of data taking place in certain regions which it should not be. Let us say if you want to trigger, let us say, an attack, obviously there is going to be some traffic data flowing from the outside a premise where a flow of data is not allowed. Let us say if you see, go to very secure places, over there they have their own local area network. They might not be directly connected with the other networks. So there is a secure network that is there. Now, if there is an assumption that the certain data from outside is flowing, that means there can be some mischief. So the government can basically ask the operators that what type of data is basically flowing from this region to that region to please disclose it. And the operators will be bound to disclose because it is the primacy is given to the national security in this case. Obligations to the telecom entities must appoint a chief telecommunication security officer, which is going to liaison between the government as well as the telecom operator. Required to report security incidents within 6 hours of discovery along with the relevant details of the incident. That means any mishap that takes place with respect to security, with respect to, let us say, data being hacked by some other person, because see, bureaucrats to ministers to people are using the networks that are of the telecom operators. Now, if certain hacking takes place in that case, it is again threatening the security also. So that is why we say these things have to be reported by the telecom operators, whether they are private or public. Incident reporting within 24 hours, the telecom entities must provide detailed information that number of users affected, duration and geographical area impacted, network or service functionality impacted, and the remedial measures that are taken. So these things are again incident reporting. IMEI, we all know that every mobile phone has a unique number. So IMEI registration rules, manufacturers of the equipment with international mobile equipment identity. Please remember, International Mobile Equipment Identity, IMEI. Every mobile number has a unique IMEI number that you can basically put it, it is hashtag, and then you just put a number and you can basically get the number also, to know whether it is genuine or not. Number must be registered and the number of such equipments with the government before their first sale for India. That means any equipment that is for sale should be registered with the IMI number within India also. That means tracking becomes easier in that case. So registration, IMEI, because please remember, many times that happens that fake phones are basically exported from China and that come into the market initially were without IMEI number before the rules were strict. So that time tracking them became very, very difficult. So what is going on? Registration of the IMEI rules have been made stricter now. Now, again, key measures, what has to be done? Obligation of the telecom entities, incident reporting if any problem happens, IMEI registration rules have been made strict. Next is Indian telecom sector and the associated laws. Please understand. The subsectors of the telecommunication industry, infrastructure, equipment, mobile virtual networks, white space spectrum, 5G, telephone service providers, broadband, all these things are again the subsectors of the telecommunication industry. All them have been actually brought under this purview and will have to take into cognizance these cybersecurity rules, because in whether it is infrastructure, whether it is a network providers, everything, because they're all interconnected. So next is India's telecom industry, the second largest in the world with respect to the subscriber base. 1.19 billion people are subscribed. So that means greater the number, greater is the impact that can have if any cybersecurity issue occurs. Primary laws, Indian Telegraph Act of 1885. In 2003, the Universal Service Obligation Fund was set by amending the Indian Telegraph Act. Over here, please remember, you just need to know the names. You don't have to go into details, because what laws govern, in the answer, you can just know that these are the laws. Indian Wireless Telegraphy Act 1993, the Telegraphy Wires Unlawful Possession Act 1950, which was later repealed. Regulatory authority is Telecom Regulatory Authority of India, which basically regulates the telecom sector, right? So these are certain dimensions. Now have the licensing authority. Again, the central government is the one which gives the licensing. So authority lies with the central government. Again, that is recommendatory body is TRAI. Final decision making is again with the central government. Government initiatives in the telecom sector. Prime Minister Wi-Fi Access Network Interface, that is PM WANI 2020. It aims to create public Wi-Fi hotspots, especially in the rural and the remote areas, so that people can access them. BharatNet Project 2011, it aims to provide broadband connectivity to all Gram Panchayats in India. That means all the rural areas should have the access of the internet connectivity. Production Linked Incentive Scheme, it aims to boost the domestic manufacturing through the incentives that are provided with respect to the production that you do. Bharat 6G Alliance 2023, it aims to position India as a global leader in 6G, because we see that India adopted 4G technology very late. At that time, other countries had already adopted. So even the government of India said that we failed to adopt 4G as the time when United States and China were using. At 5G, again fine, but 6G, we are again at the pace at which the other countries are adopting. Yes, China has started using 6G. We are also no less. We are also in a way to start testing towards that and go towards, let us say, using 6G, because that is very important with respect to artificial intelligence and the other economic aspects where 6G speed is something they need. So these are the aspects which are there. Topic 3, GS3, disqualification proceedings against the MLAs put on hold. So please understand, when we talk about this, we need to understand the disqualifications proceedings against the MLAs. Now see, provisions for disqualifications for the member of Legislative Assembly. First is, what does the Constitution say? Constitution provisions, Article 191. A person can be disqualified if, first, holding an office of profit. They hold an government position that earn profit unless exempted by the state law. That means they are in some position. Let us say a member of Legislative Assembly already has a position, but along with it, he is holding one position through which he is getting money, or let us say profiteering. That will not be allowed unless and until it is exempted. Let us assume, if you see the Solicitor General of India, right? They are allowed to do private practice because it is already mentioned in the Constitution also. And for that matter, let us say laws also mention it. On the other hand, the MLAs and MPs will not be allowed. So unless and until something is mentioned or exempted, you cannot basically do it. That is what it says, that holding office of profit means holding a government position and earning profit out of it. Unless it is prohibited. Because if it is exempted from it, then you can do, but not, then you cannot. That means this is basically a means to prevent any corruption or corrupt practices taking place. Mental fitness. They are declared mentally unfit. If court declares, please understand, the court declares based on the report by a medical board. And the medical board recommends the court that the person who is mentally fit, that means in that case, a person can be disqualified. Third, insolvency. They are declared insolvent, have not cleared it. That means there is insolvency that they had taken. Let us say the case of Byju's, let us assume. If Byju's is an owner in which he is bankrupt and insolvency cases are taking place, now that person, even if is a member of Legislative Assembly or MP, will be again disqualified because of the possibility of the corrupt practices that a person can do because misusing his power. Next is citizenship. They are not an Indian citizen, have taken the citizenship of some foreign country. Supposingly, it is found that a person who is selected as an MLA or MP is not a citizen of India. Again, disqualified. Or it is found that a person who is an MLA and MP and then he takes up the citizenship of another country. That also means you're disqualified because you're no more a citizen of India. Fifth, Parliament by law, disqualified under any law made by the Parliament. So any law that has been made by the Parliament which says that under these circumstances an MLA or MP can be disqualified, so that person will be disqualified based on the law. Next is again in the Constitution, Anti-Defection Law, Schedule 10. 10th schedule of the Indian Constitution outlines the disqualifying members of the Parliament or the state legislature, introduced through the 52nd Constitutional Amendment. That means defection basically means, please understand, you are basically involved in some corrupt practices. Now please understand what type of practices can be there. Let us say voluntary resignation. Now a member is disqualified if he voluntarily gives up this party membership. Second, voting against the party direction. Let us say you are a member of one particular party and some law is there and you have been told by the whip to vote on a particular law. But what you do, you vote against it. That means you're going against the directions of the party. So that means you are doing anti-party things. So then also it means you can be disqualified. Independently elected members. If an independent member joins any political party, will face disqualification. Next is nominated member. A nominated member will joins a political party 6 months after his nomination will be disqualified. Now these are the things under which you will be see disqualification taking place. So who is the deciding authority? The speaker or the chairman of the respective house decides whether the matter will be taken into consideration or not. So that means the deciding authority with respect to the anti-defection law is basically the speaker or the chairman, whoever is heading the house at that time, is one who is going to decide, and his decision is final. Yes, that can be questioned in the court of law, but this is primarily what we say as a final. Now, disqualifications under parliamentary law. Please understand, under the Representation of People Act 1951 also, there are certain criteria through which a member of Legislative Assembly or MP also can be disqualified. See, disqualification for conviction. Let us say Prevention of Corruption Act 1988. Under this, you are involved in certain corrupt practices. You will be disqualified. That means punishment is limited to fine only. Disqualification was 6 years from the date of conviction. That means once you are convicted, you will be disqualified for 6 years. In case under this act, you are basically convicted that you are involved in some corrupt practices. Imprisonment, disqualified from the date of conviction until the imprisonment ends, plus additional 6 years after the release. That means, let us assume, first thing is a person should be imprisoned for 2 or more years. Now, let us say a person is told, or let us say the court orders that this person is going to be in jail for 5 years. That means it is more than 2 years. So, in the 5 years, he is going to be in jail. After 5 years, 6 further years, he cannot basically be a part or contest election or be an MLA or MP. That means the number of years for which he is in jail plus 6 years. So that means in this case 11 years. But for this to apply, the crime committed by a person should be such that which involves an imprisonment of 2 or more years. That is again an important dimension. Next, authority to decide disqualification. Governor's rule. Governor makes a final decision on disqualification except for the anti-defection cases where the power lies with the speaker or the chairman. The governor must seek and follow the Election Commission of India's opinion in this respect. Speaker's role under the 10th schedule is most important because anti-defection law, he is the one who is heading the House. In 1992, the Supreme Court ruled that Speaker's decision of disqualification at 10th schedule is subject to judicial review. That means the decision taken by the Speaker or the chairperson of a House can be questioned in the court, and that means you can question the rule. That means, let us say some disqualification should have taken place, but a decision has not been given. That means certain malafide intentions are there. So that means you can go to the court and take the chairman or the speaker into the court of law. That means some malafide intention has been taken place. Next is other grounds for disqualification. Now, there are other grounds also on which disqualification can take place. Let's just say found guilty of election offences or corrupt practices. That means you said that you are spending 10 lakh rupees and you are spending 10 crore rupees. That means you're giving wrong information. Or simply you said that you have let us say this amount of wealth, but you do not show that. So what does it happen? Again, corrupt practices. Dismissed from the government service for corruption and disloyalty to the state. Again, you will be disqualified. Convicted for promoting enmity between groups or bribery. If you promote this, then also disqualified. Failed to submit election expenses, again disqualified. Holding an interest in the government contracts, that means you are benefiting out of some contracts, again a corrupt practice. Being a director, managing director, or holding an office of profit with a corporation, at least 25% government shareholding is there. That means again you are profiting out of some government company where 25% government holding is there, again disqualified. Punished for social crimes like untouchability, dowry. These types of crime are there, you will be again disqualified. So these are again those dimensions which become important. Next is India's urban infrastructure financing needs reality. Please understand, this is an important topic, but we'll do it in brief because simple also. This says that India's urban infrastructure firstly is lacking funds, and along with it there are a lot of problems associated with it. First, it is said that the urban population in India is going to rise from 400 million to 800 million in next 3 decades. And it is also projected by the government of India that by 2050, more than 60% of the population of India will be in the urban regions. So that means we can see the pace at which the urbanization is going to take place. The problem here is the World Bank says that India will require close to 70 lakh crore by 2026 to meet the infrastructure needs. That means the amount of fund that is required to meet the infrastructural development need is 70 lakh crore by 2036. And today what we are doing? Annually, we are spending only 1.3. At present, we are spending only 1.3 lakh crore. Do you realize that? 70 lakh crore and 1.3 lakh crore. You realize close to 68, 65%, 65 times the gap is there. So that is why we say this problem again arises because there is lack of fund with respect to what is expected and the pace at which the urbanization is taking place. Then the issue over here is pointed is local finances. Please understand. At the local level, we have the municipalities for the urban regions to take care of the various aspects and local level development. The problems are even mentioned by the Administrative Reform Commission is that they do not efficiently work. Or let us say the taxation mechanism is such that does not efficiently work. That is why they are dependent upon the state and the central grants in order to work also. Please see, municipals are dependent on they're basically dependent on the various grants that are given by the central government as well as state government. Bangalore and Jaipur basically are able to get only 5 to 10% of the taxation. That means if 100 rupees could be collected, because of their policies, they are just able to get 5 to 20 rupees out of the 100 rupees. Potentially, let us say 100 rupees, just able to get 5 rupees or 20 rupees. That means another 95 to 80 rupees could have been further collected through the taxation, is not collected because of lack of proper mechanisms through which taxation collection takes place. Property tax in India, complete India collection is merely 25,000 crore. Just imagine. Through every household, the taxation can be collected. But in complete India, because the property tax collection lies with the municipalities, and merely 25,000 crore is elected, though the potential is of lakhs of crores. Next is, even the 15th Finance Commission said that 23% of the revenue is unspent. Now, this is again a problematic issue. First issue is that they lack the funds. They say they lack the fund. Second is those who have the fund also, they do not spend it properly. Especially if you see the municipalities of, let us say Bombay, BMC. Now, BMC's budget is much more than the whole state of Uttarakhand. Greater than 40,000 crore is their budget, annual budget. In that, if you realize that close to 23 or 25% is unspent. So there is a double problem. The ones which are having are saying that, okay, we could not spend it completely. The others are the ones which are not having the funds. And they are dependent on what? The state and the central grants. So both sides, the problem is arising. As we move ahead, please understand, this particular paragraph says that the good thing is Amrut and Smart City has basically spent 80% of their fund. Because it is something, what is the reason that differentiates? Because every project of Amrut and Smart City is basically observed through dashboards by the central government. So once that is done, the funding or the transparency is much more clearer. That is why 80%, or that means of the 100 rupees, 80% is very clearly spent. So that is why the positives of Amrut and Smart City is very clearly visible in India. If you go further, we realize that the PPP model, the public-private partnership, is something that has been in the market, as we say, from decades. The problem is that there has been a rapid decline in the private participation. See, earlier on, when this concept of private partners also coming in the funding and in the projects, a lot of private players did come up. But later on, we realized because of red tapeism, problems associated with governments, government changes, and all those things, that basically led to the private partners reducing their contribution in their projects. Example is in 2012, 8,553 crores were again a contribution made by the private players, which has come down to 467 crore in 2018. So do we realize that the decrease is so rapid? This is according to Government of India. Why? Because of the red tapeism, out of the commissions that the private players have to pay, they said that we don't want to be a part of it. Again, next is the reforms. This particular whole portion talks about reforms. It says that, see, develop a robust pipeline of projects. What it says is proper, let us say, like the 12th Finance Commission also says, it basically says that we need to have a proper mechanism through which various projects should be carried out, through which the financing can be there, through which what all projects should be created, because the rapid pace at which the urbanization is taking place, we need to have a proper mechanism and pipeline of projects in order to meet the demand should be there. So that is why they said 70 lakh crore is for the next 20 years, it should be secured, and that should be done again with increasing the confidence of the private players, and public-private partnership would be enhanced. Next is decouple the project preparedness from the finance assistance. What does it mean? Please understand. What is happening is very often when The people who are giving the finances are the ones who are preparing the projects also along with it. That leads to the preparation of the project from the perspective, simply from the perspective of money. What this point is saying that whenever an urbanization takes place, please remember it should be from a dimension through social development, through environmental friendly dimension. Social impact assessment is taking place, environment impact assessment is taking place, whether everybody is included in the development or not. This means that whenever urbanization takes place, you have to consider the social environmental factors along with the financial aspects, not merely the financial aspects. Next is digital tools, digitalization. That means, do you realize an example of case study can be smart city project or Amrut, where we realize that because of the digital technology and the observation and the vigilant eye of the central government, the amount of funding that took place was at a much better rate, and 80% of them was spent. That means digital technology can be used over here. Then is transport, green transport, environmentally transport, linking of the various regions of an urban area is very, very important, because that will act as economic aid in economic development of a region. So emphasis on efficient transport is what is being focused. So this is again the reforms and the aspects which we studied in the editorial. Now let's move ahead, prelims topics quickly. Topic 1, GS 1. Over here, please remember, this is a form of dance which we see, right? This is again, see over here, everybody can basically note it down also. When we talk about Kandakarnan Thira, please understand, this Thira is also known as Theyam. Thira can also be known as Theyam. This is also a form of dance. So what is Kandakarnan? Kondakarnan also, certain places it is written, depending on the pronunciation. Now this is what it is. Please understand, this is the dance that we are basically reading over here. Just a minute. So this is a fire dance that takes place. Now please understand, when I talk about Thira or Thayam, please understand, Thira and Thayam are same thing. It basically is a ritualistic dance performances. First, let us see what is Thayam, and then we'll see the dance. These are ritualistic dances performed in northern Kerala and even parts of Karnataka, who momentarily are treated as godlike entities. The people who are basically dressed up and dancing are treated as godlike entities. You have seen in certain movies also, right? So this is performed at local temples known as Kavu, and it is often the village biggest festival. Now, it incorporates dance, mimes, music, and various forms that are basically involved. In Karnataka also, Bhuta Kola type Thayyam take place. So again, these are varieties. Themes are related to Vaishnavism, Shaktism, Shaivism. These are the themes that are basically associated with. Performed by mainly males, except for the Devakottam Thayyam. Devakottam is the only Thayyam ritual which is performed by women. Now, please, did you realize that when I said Thayyam, Thayyam is of various types and kinds. Types: Chamundi Thayyam, popular in Malabar. You have Vishnu Murti. This is again another form of Thayyam. This is Gulikan, another form of Thayyam. And Kuti Chatham, this is again form of Thayyam. That means these are various types of ritualistic dances that take place in Kerala. Among them, one type is Khandakarnan Thayyam, which we saw right now, the photograph, where we see a unique tall hairgear or mudi. The Thayyam wears a 16 burning torches around his waist. The popular belief that Kandakarnan Thayyam has a power to cure all kind of diseases. Over here, generally a man is playing with fire. It is associated with Shaivya or Shaivism, or associated with Lord Shiv. This is again important. Lord Shiv, where it is said that this dance performance tends to cure the illnesses or the problems that basically are in the society. So this is again, we had Thayyam, various types of Thayyam are there. Out of them, one Thayyam is Kandakarnan Thayyam, which is practiced in Kerala, where we see play of fire is done, again associated with Lord Shiva or Shaivism, where we see it is aimed at curing the diseases of the society. Next is topic 2, GS 102, Viksit Bharat dialogue will be upheld. Now please understand page number 5. This is the article that was presented in PIB also. Prime Minister calls for youth participation to build a Viksit Bharat in Man Ki Bharat address. Announces Viksit Bharat Youth Leadership Dialogue to inspire youth. Now please understand, this will basically take place in January 11 and 12. What it is aiming at, please understand. The details will be released later on. These are certain things that was even published at PIB. What is the aim? Viksit Bharat Dialogue major aim is that let the youth also participate and be active participant in the politics of India. What does it mean at? See, Viksit Bharat Leader Young Dialogue over here is let the youth also be active participant in the politics of the nation, because they are the one who are going to lead the country in the future. Over here again discussions would be there how the youth can basically be empowered, because we will be discussing that again. The National Youth Day would be celebrated in the month of January along with Swami Vivekananda's birthday. Over there, the Honorable Prime Minister is going to celebrate or talk about the contribution of youth and how they can play a very positive role towards the development of the country. And major theme is their participation in the politics and how their active political participation can basically be fruitful for the country in the future, right? So various dialogues, discussions will be taking place, events will be there, various quizzes will be there, which is starting from 25th November. That means quizzes how related to India. So it is a multi-platform dialogue. That means please understand National Youth Festival 2025 will be there, which is basically, please understand, again, participation of the youth in the development of the country. One of the ways is through political participation, and how it is possible and how we can increase their participation is what is the theme over here. And along with it, what role they can play in the development of the country. Now we'll see the details in the month of January as it goes. Quickly, we'll be seeing the MCQs and the explanations. This is question number 1. These are the, again, the options. Answer. Question number 2. Options. Answer. Question number 3. Options. Answer. Question number 4. Options. Answer. Question 5. Options. Answer. So this was the analysis of the Hindu from today's newspaper. Hope you liked it and enjoyed it. We'll continue with it from tomorrow also. Take care and Jai Hind.